Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a preview of this game right here, which is Nocturne. This is a game published by Flatout Games, who is helping sponsor today's video, so a huge thank you to them. It is designed by David Yetzi, and the illustrations are by the wonderful Beth Sobel, and this is one of the games in a series that Flatout Games has, starting with Calico. They then moved on to Cascadia, Verdant, as well as Fit to Print, and now this is the fifth in this Flatout Games series. They are all very different games. They are all puzzly games, but they all have a very different feel, a very different look to them. Nocturne will be coming to Kickstarter or is already up on Kickstarter when you guys are seeing this, so I will link down below to that if you guys are interested in going and checking it out. But yeah, without further ado, we are going to get into how Nocturne plays. I'm going to do a little aim of the game as well as showing you the components, which I will say right now, all of these components are prototype components, so all of them are subject to change. If you want to see all of the components and stuff in the Kickstarter page or the campaign page, then definitely go and check that out. If you guys want to see all of that, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Let's get into this preview of Nocturne, shall we? Alright, so Nocturne to start off is a 1 to 4 player game. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show you any of the solo of it currently because it's still under production and the solo mode did not come in the prototype, but there is a solo mode, so definitely go and check out the campaign if you want to know more about the solo mode. I am very excited about the solo mode. I have been a huge fan of all of the other Flatout Games solo modes, so I'm sure this one is going to be just as wonderful. But yes, it's 1 to 4 players. It plays in about 35 to 40 minutes. It plays players 10 and up. And basically what is happening in Nocturne is all players are going to be playing as Fox Mystics, which proves to be a very difficult sentence to say because I've said it many times, but Fox Mystics, and you are going to be traveling very sneaky and cunningly through the forest and casting spells in order to collect an arrangement of mystical or magical items. So there are a bunch of items here in front of me in a grid. It's going to be a different size grid based off of player count, but players are going to be using some mechanics like bidding, which is a little bit of spatial bidding, which is an interesting mechanic. And then also there is collecting those mystical or magical items. You're going to be doing some set collection as well. And you are going to be playing over 2 rounds. There are simply just 2 rounds. The first round you are going to be going through this grid here. You're going to be bidding, placing down your chips, or casting your magical spells, collecting the tiles that you want, and creating a tableau in front of you for some set collection. Each of the tiles are going to be doing something different and getting you points in different ways. So I will explain all of the different tiles a little bit later in the game. But once you are finished placing down and all of the tiles have been gathered from the center, that phase is going to be over. That is the Twilight phase. And then you are going to move into the Moonlight phase where another grid is going to be placed out. You're going to play the same as the first round over again, and then once the second round is finished, you're going to tally up your points in front of you from all of the magical items that you have gathered, and whoever has gathered the most victory points with all of their magical items in front of them are going to be the winner of the game. There's some other things that are going to be going on as well with this spirit board right here, and a few other small things, so I will get into those in the how to play, but that's a general overview of how Nocturne plays. For the components, like I said, you have a grid in the center here of different tiles, and this is going to be different depending on player count. So in a 2-player game, and I'm assuming for a solo game as well, you're going to be doing a 4x4 grid. For a 3-player game, it's going to be a 4x5 grid, and then for a 4-player game that I have set up right now, you're going to be doing a grid of 5x5. So that is all the tiles there. There are obviously some additional tiles here as well. There's going to be some tiles that allow you to pick up some additional tiles, pick up 3 and choose 1 sort of thing to put into your set collection tableau area. So those are all the tiles there. You additionally have these cards right here, which these are concoction cards, which are an additional thing that you can gain victory points for. And it's a little bit more like set collection or order fulfillment in a way, where basically you're going to need a certain arrangement or a certain number of these different icons. The icons are going to be on all of these different tiles. So for this concoction right here, if I was able to get 1 feather and 1 skull, I would gain 2 victory points. But if I was able to get an additional feather and a magical egg or a mystical egg, I would gain 5 victory points. So those are the concoction cards. You're going to each have a starter concoction card at the beginning of the game, and then there are going to be tiles that are going to allow you to, I believe, draw 3 and then keep 1 additional concoction card, and you can kind of build up your concoction cards, and as long as you have those specific icons at the end of the game, you will gain some additional victory points for those. So those are the concoction cards. Additionally, you have this board right here. This is called the Forest Spirit board, and there are going to be additional tiles here, and we'll get to how you are going to draft those tiles at the end of each of the rounds. So that is the Forest Spirit board. You also have some different objectives here. You also additionally have the concoction cards here that you're going to be grabbing throughout the game. And then there are 2 different types of goal cards. There are the Twilight goal cards, and then there are the Midnight goal cards. The Twilight goal cards are going to be used in the first round. The first round is called the Twilight round. Those are going to be objectives that you can get right when that happens. So if you see that you have achieved one of the Twilight goals, then if you are the first person to do that, you actually take that Twilight goal and you place it into your tableau, and then no one else can score that goal. But for the Midnight goals, those are going to come out in the second round. They are going to be public objectives. So those are going to be objectives that everyone can achieve at the end of the game. So once you have achieved one of them, you don't actually take it and put it in your tableau like the Twilight ones. You are going to be just scoring them. Everyone's going to be scoring them at the end of the game. So you additionally, above those goal cards, have the shadow spell tokens. Those will be used if you have tokens left over at the end of a round that you can kind of upgrade to the shadow ones in order to make your leftover tokens stronger in the second round. So we'll get into that a little bit later. And then lastly, you have all of the player colors, so and the player components. So you have orange, purple/pink, fuchsia, blue, as well as green, and I have the green in front of me here, and each of the players do have a coordinating character here, and they are the most beautiful fox illustrations I've ever seen. This one right here is Abigail Bushtail, so all of the different fox mystics have their names, and you are going to have a starting icon here. So for Abigail, she has a starting leaf icon here, but for the other ones, they all have different ones. And for a little bit of more challenge in the game, you can actually flip over the card, and that gives each player some sort of asymmetric ability that they can use throughout the game. But if you want to keep it simple for your first few games, you just use the one side, and it doesn't have any sort of asymmetric ability there. So that is the card for each character or each player. Each player also has a skip token, so if a player decides to skip, they simply just flip over their skip token, and that would allow other players to know that they have skipped. Each player is going to have some spell tokens, and you are going to get rid of some depending on player. So in a 2-player game, you keep all of them. In a 3-player game, I believe you get rid of one of the 3s or one of the 4s. And then for a 4-player game, like I have here set up, you're going to get rid of one of the 3s and one of the 4s. And then additionally, like I mentioned, each player is going to start with a starting corruption card. So that is, or those are, all the components for the game. But let's get into how exactly Nocturne plays. So getting into how Nocturne plays, like I mentioned in the aim of the game is played over 2 rounds. You have the Twilight round as well as the Moonlight round. And at the beginning of the game, all the players are going to have everything in front of them here. They're going to have their spell tokens, their starting corruption card, their character card, as well as their skip token here. And the first player is going to simply choose one of their spell tokens and place it onto one of the tiles in the center of the table. So this can be any of the tiles, and this is where the interesting part of the game is that you are actually not placing your spell token on the tile that you want. This kind of spins the thought process of trying to obtain these tiles completely upside down, because you are taking one of your spell tokens and placing it on one that you don't necessarily want, but is close to one of the tiles that you do want, but not close enough that another player will put their spell token on top of that tile. So when I say this, I mean that a player is going to choose one of their spell tokens. It is numbered from 1 to 7. There are going to be duplicates of some of the numbers in some of the player counts, but in a 4-player game, you are going to get 1 1, 1 2, 1 3, 1 4, 2 5s, 1 6, 1 7, and a star spell token. So this star spell token here is your strongest spell, and use this sparingly because this spell token cannot be beat by any other player. So it pretty much gives you a guarantee item from the center for scoring. So a player may decide to place down one of their spell tokens, and let's say a player decides to put down a 2. They would place it on one of the tiles in the center, and I'm just going to say that this player decides to go right in the center, and then the next player in player order would then place down one of their spell tokens. And when they are placing down, they must place their spell token adjacently to the one that was just placed. And the spell token has to be a stronger number than the one that was just placed as well. So this one here is a 2. So this blue player might decide they want to place a 3. And like I said, they have to place it adjacently, and they might place it here beside it like that. The next player would then go placing a stronger spell adjacent to that one. This is orthogonally, it cannot be diagonally. And this player may decide to place this 5 here. And the orange player might actually decide to skip, because in order to get a tile now, that orange player must play a higher than 5 spell token, and you don't have many spell tokens higher than a 5. They only have a 6, 7, and their star. So they might decide that they're going to pass, so they would flip over their token there and decide to pass. So then play would move back to the first player. They would decide if they would want to play a spell token down. It has to be higher than a 5. The green player might decide that they want to skip as well. The blue player, though, might decide, hey, I am actually going to play one of my tiles. I'm going to go here adjacent to the one that was previously played. They're going to place their 6 there. The pink player may then decide, okay, that's a little bit too far for me. I'm going to skip. And because all other players have passed, aside from the blue player, that blue player would then get that tile that they most recently bidded for. So that is this mushroom tile here. That blue player would take that mushroom tile. The tile that they bid for would be flipped upside down, and that would be placed in the grid for the rest of that round. After that, all the players that had a spell token placed in the grid that did not win that round would then take them either back to their supply, or alternatively, the player could decide, instead of taking it back to their supply, they could actually take that token and place it onto the Forest Spirit board. And what happens with this Forest Spirit board here is at the end of the round, so at the end of the first round as well as the second round, whatever tokens are in this line here, they are going to be placed in ascending order. So if any other player decided to also take one of their tokens and not take it back, but place it onto the Forest Spirit board, the lower one would get pushed to the right, and the higher one would get pushed to the furthest left spot there. And basically what's going to happen here is at the end of each of the rounds, whatever tokens are in this line here, they are going to be in ascending order from highest to lowest, going from left to right. And those players will then have an opportunity to draft from the Forest Spirit board. So starting with the player furthest to the left, they're going to start and draft one of the 6. Could be less with other player counts, but in a 4-player game, you are going to have all 6 tiles here. And players are simply going to draft the tiles from this Forest Spirit board, and they are going to place them in front of them for their tableau and their set collection. So that is how that plays out. Those tiles are lost for the rest of the round, but it does give you an opportunity to get additional tiles from these Forest Spirit board. So then once all players had taken back their tokens, either place them back in front of them for a future round, or chose to place it onto the Forest Spirit board, play would then go to the next round. The player that most recently placed down one of their tokens would be the first player, and they would then place one of their other tokens. So if this player placed it here, like so, and then the next player would go, they would maybe place their 2 here. The orange player would then go, maybe placing their 4 here. Green would then go, maybe placing their 5 here. The blue might decide to then pass. The pink might decide to pass as well as the orange. And the green player would actually win this by getting this feather tile here. They would then flip over their spell token and place that tile that they won in front of them for their set collection. And then players would again take back their tokens, maybe placing one of their tokens onto the forest spirit board. And if a tile of a same number ever gets placed on the forest spirit board, you would place that number below the other numbers already placed on the board. So there is a 2 here, and I did place another 2 here, and that would go 1 step lower than the other numbers. And then some players might also take back theirs. And this is where we get into a fun little magical thing in the game called corner casting. So if this would happen where the green player here won this tile, and there actually ends up being a tile here that does not have anything adjacent to it. So there is one of these eggs down here in the bottom corner. The green player may actually just play a corner cast, which means they can take one of their tiles or tokens, they can immediately place it onto that tile, and they would obviously just win it outright. They would take that tile, they would flip over their token, and then that would be that round. That is called corner casting because that player was able to just start the round, place one of their tokens, take that tile because no other players could place because there were no tiles adjacent to it. And when this happens, that player then does not start the next round. It is actually passed to the next player in turn order. So in this situation, which I will say I am going in like counterclockwise order, not sure why I decided to do that. But for this example, we would move over to the blue player and they would then start this round. Play would continue like this until all of the tiles in the center were gone, or if all players had passed, and then you would move on to the forest spirit board. So like I mentioned before, all of the players that had their spell tokens on this track here would then have a chance to draft these tiles on the board. So starting with the player on the far left, they would start by drafting one of the tiles on the board and then going all the way to the right until all the tiles had been drafted. Those tiles would be taken back. And I will also mention that any players at the end of the round that had any of their spell tokens still left over, so that means that they didn't use them to gain one of the magical items from the center, they would actually gain a shadow spell token. So these are going to be stronger tokens that you can use in the Moonlight round that are going to be very strong. There are numbers 5 all the way up to 10. So you have to remember that all players only have up to 7 with their basic spell tokens, but these ones go all the way up to 10. There's 110, 19, 18, 17, 16, and 15. And basically what happens here is all players that had tokens left over, you would place them into ascending order, and then whatever order that was in, that coordinating player would then take those shadow spell tokens. So I will put on some B-roll here to clarify what that means, but basically you would just line them all up, and then whatever one matches up with the shadow spell token, you would then exchange that leftover token with that shadow spell token. So that is everything. Players would then obviously have whatever Twilight goal that they chose throughout the round in front of them. That can happen, you know, in the middle of a round if you happen to have one of the goal cards, which I will actually read out one of them here. So this is be the first to win a tile with a 5 spell. So whatever player won a tile with a 5 spell token first would grab that, put it into their tableau area, and they would gain 3 victory points at the end of the game. All players would then take back all of their tokens that were played into the center, and they would put them back into their supply, plus any of the shadow tokens that they got from any leftovers. And then you would move into the Moonlight round. So you would take 3 of the Moonlight cards here, which I will read out one of them here. Like I said, these are going to be more endgame things than the Twilight ones, which are going to be like during the round you scoring for something. But this Moonlight goal here is 1 victory point per offering in the Forest Spirits. So that's going to be the Forest Spirit board. So whatever tiles or tokens you had on the Forest Spirit board, you would gain 1 victory point for that. So you would be looking at that goal card and trying to put as many of your tokens into the Forest Spirit board as possible. All right, so now that we know the general gameplay of Nocturne, I'm going to quickly go through all of the different tiles and how they're going to score you at the end of the game. So you do have some herb tiles. So these are going to be the green tiles, and these are going to have different herbs on them. They are also going to have a different letter. So I believe it's letters A through F, if I'm not mistaken. But these are always going to give you one of the leaf icons, whether that be 1 leaf icon or 2 leaf icons. A general rule for the tiles is they are sometimes going to have 1 of that icon or 2 of that icon, and the icons are going to help you get the different concoction cards that you have. So those are what the icons are for. But for the herb tiles, you are going to gain victory points just for that herb tile alone. But then if you are able to collect a set of unique herb tiles, you can actually gain additional victory points. So if you have 3 unique herb tiles, you get 5 victory points. 4 you get 8 victory points, and 5 you get 12 victory points. So those are those. Additionally, there is a wild herb, so that's going to get you another unique herb there. You also have the skull tiles, which the skull tiles are pretty simple. They're just going to flat out give you some victory points. So you have 1 that gives you 4 victory points, 1 that gives you 3, and 1 that gives you 2. Like I said, some of them have 1 skull icon, and some of them have 2 skull icons. You have the mushroom tiles, which there is going to be a 3 mushroom and a 2 mushroom. The 3 mushroom, if you have 1 of them, so this is a full-on set collection. So if you have 1 3 mushroom, you get 3 victory points. If you have 2 3 mushrooms, you get 0 victory points. But if you do manage to get 3 3 mushrooms, you're going to get 13 victory points. So that is a set collection there. And then for the 2 mushrooms, if you have 1 2 mushroom tile, you get 0 victory points, but if you have 2 2 mushroom tiles, you get 9 victory points for that. The egg tiles, these are the mysterious egg tiles. These are going to get you victory points based off of if you have the most out of everybody. So at the end of the game, every player will count up how many mysterious eggs they have, and whoever has the most is going to get 4 victory points each for each of their mysterious egg tiles. Second place will get 3 victory points each, third place will get 2 victory points each, and then fourth place will get 1 victory points each. So the more mysterious eggs you have, the more victory points you will get if you are the person that has the most of them. And then also we have the Firebird feather tiles. So these again are very much just a set collection tile. So if you have 1, you'll get 2 victory points, 2 you'll get 4, 3 you'll get 8, 4 you'll get 13, 5 you'll get 18, 6 you'll get 24, and 7 you'll get 32. So that's based off of how many of those tiles that you have. Again, you can have ones that have 1 icon and ones that have 2 icon. So those are all of the initial scoring tiles, and there are 3 different ones that are going to kind of help you in different ways throughout the game. This one here is actually going to, this is the Mirrorstone tile. This is actually going to allow you to duplicate or use it as a copy of another tile. So you can actually use this as another Firebird feather and get some more victory points. If you didn't quite get 3 of the 3 mushrooms and you really wanted that 13 victory points, you could actually use this as a 3 mushroom and then get that 13 victory points. So those can be really, really helpful because they are pretty much just a duplicate of whatever tile you want it to be. And then you're going to have the Cursed Treasure Chest. So sadly, this is going to get you -1 victory points at the end of the game, but if you do take this tile, it will allow you to draw 3 tiles off of the pile over here, and you will be able to keep 1 of them. So if you cannot find a certain tile in the center here, or there is just not one of those tiles out in that current round, you could actually take one of these or bet for one of these. Grab 1, you will get -1 victory points, but it would then allow you to look at 3 of the tiles and then choose 1 to keep. And then lastly, for tiles, there are the Ancient Runestone tiles, which there are 5 different types. One with each of the icons. So there's the mystery egg icon, the mushroom icon, the skull icon, the firebird feather icon, as well as the herb icon. They will give you that additional icon for your concoction cards, but also they will allow you to draw 3 concoction cards and keep 1. So this is a way to get more concoction cards. If you've already completed your starter one and you feel like you can complete a few more, then you would want to draft these different runestone cards there, or tiles. And those are all of the different tile types. So at the end of the game, players will then count up all of their different set collections and all of their different tiles in front of them. They will then count any of the Twilight goals that they got in the first round. They will then count up all of the victory points for the Moonlight goals that were up for the second round. Players would then get 2 additional victory points for any of their spell tokens that were left over at the end of the game. And then also, if you did play with the opposite side of your character card where it had your individual player power, you would get 2 additional victory points for that. And that, my friends, is everything for this preview of Nocturne. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Comment down below if Nocturne is something that you are interested in. If you are interested in it, definitely go and check out the Kickstarter campaign. I will have it linked down below. A huge thank you again to Flatout Games for sponsoring today's video. I appreciate it very, very much. I love you guys so, so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends.